So good morning, everyone. This is Robin Modafair, and I am joined today by Betty Hunlock, my dear and crucial partner in this escapade. Today, we're going to have a discussion on angelology. And angelology is our subject for today, so it is the theological study of angels. These celestial beings play a significant role in various traditions all over the world and throughout all of history. Our conversation will explore some key points about this subject. Just to set the stage here for our conversation, Betty and I wanted to share with you and our audience that this is a subject that has been close to our hearts for many years. Although this may sound strange and very much unbelievable to many of you, I have had the privilege of having very many encounters with not only angels, but so many varied expressions of the elemental and light kingdoms. Although in this particular lifetime, I have a very profound affinity with every level of angelic kingdoms, as maybe a lot of you do out there, I know that so many people in this time are doubting their true existence. Now, what I mean by that is that it has come to my awareness that Christians and non-Christians alike, even those who have had claims for so many years of working very closely with angels and having knowledge of or belief of and or encounters with them, they have in recent years appeared to turn from their prior understanding of angels and are now claiming to entertain the possibility that they may more likely be extraterrestrial or some other kind of psychological phenomenon. Now, this isn't all of them, but I have seen many of those who used to profess to have grand knowledge of the angelic kingdoms do this. They now believe this to be a more probable explanation of what people are claiming to have seen or experienced. Now, what I cannot, and Betty cannot, so the two of us cannot bring to this conversation, is anything that will convince you one way or the other. But we can share with you our experiences, and we hope that this may cause you to question or ponder the possibility that they all are real and working with humanity at all times. This is a group of creatures which, in the mind of the human, is subjective. I offer to you that it is really, is not subjective. It is a fact that angels exist, and they are not only what you may have believed them to previously be in times gone by, but they really are so much more. They affect our lives in ways you cannot imagine, raising our consciousness and vibrations, loving us through the difficult times in our lives, guiding and directing the world, the universe, and us always in the path of light and our universal heart awakening. All we ask, Betty and myself, is that you come with an open heart and loving, willing spirit. If this conversation speaks to you, that is a gift to our spirits. If not, that is fine too. Either way, it is a fun topic. So I welcome you, Betty. How are you today?
Oh, Robin, this is so fun for me to engage with you just as we have been prepping for the experience today. The subject of angels is just so heartwarming. And yes. I wasn't really brought up into a religion that, other than reading the Bible and the experiences of, angels showing up in the verses, other than Christmas, I didn't have a full engagement of understanding angels. And as I've gone through my life now, I understand that in our household, it was there. And it continues to be there and grow. So I'm really looking forward to your explanation of the different angels, the the reasons that they exist, how they help humanity, and how it can help us. So,
oh, great.
Thank you. Thank you for including me in this conversation.
Of course. Well, I couldn't do it without you, so I'm really glad that you're with me on this too. I do want to put a caveat here just for the information for those of you who might be following these conversations, that Betty and I are switching back and forth from what we call inspired conversations on these subjects and maybe many other subjects regarding the soul or any other phenomenon that the light wants to bring to us. We do spontaneous conversations where we get into deeper dives with a lot of this information. So there will be themes and conversations coming out later that explore more on these subjects. But for now, today's basic course on angeology is going to come in this form, and we're just going to present this research and the material that has been channeled to me as well as some of our own experiences and anything that we want to comment on. So we hope that it helps you. So to begin, the Bible contains, of course we were just talking about that, contains abundant references to angels, both in the Old Testament, pardon me, and in the New Testament. While details about angels are often omitted, their mention is inclusive throughout Scripture, with at least 196 references in the New American Standard Bible. Some people call it the NSAB. Jesus himself referred to angels, emphasizing their existence and role. The term angeology comes from the Greek words angelos, which means messenger, or angel, and logos, meaning word or matter. So to Christian systematic theology, angeology refers to the study of the Bible doctrine of angels. In my experience with them or encounters, I have understood them to be pure energy or light, which can move between light and matter, bringing forth messages, help, protection, inspiration, encouragement, and clarity. Whatever action they deem necessary, they are always constant in the vibration of unconditional love or impersonal love, whatever best suits the situation. The woven wavelength of light with source is always directed by that inner weave or connection to the light and its push toward action. As a being with its fingers on the pulse of all creation, they know where and how to move in any situation perfectly. They express with a higher order or state of oneness, and yet each with their individual movement as they bring forth their work in their holy space, just behind the veil of this human world. They are very real. They see and know just about everything, being able to access the infinite mind simultaneously and also receive the divine impulse of knowledge in order to act upon those impulses in perfect love. They are the bridge between pure spirit, light, and matter, constantly weaving between the two. They build and strengthen that cord for us between our world and that of the higher light vibration. They embrace us and hold light for us. They love us. So, do you have any, I know you and I were talking about this subject, Betty, for quite a long time now, and I was just wondering if maybe you had any input at this moment or any questions that might have come up to you on this subject.
Not at this point with questions, but just the whole aspect of being between the worlds, that being the direction from Creator to support and be our allies and support for our lives, that they bring the wisdom into matter. And to me, that's extraordinary. That's like a pure miracle.
It is. It is. They're quite amazing. They're an amazing creation. And when you watch their function of light, you start to fully and wholly understand them. And not only that, but they seem to draw you in because they really, truly are the closest thing that we have between us and the place that we left when we came here. And so this light has been with us from the beginning, and it will continue to be with us until, we leave this particular experience. The Essenes were a very amazing mystic Jewish sect during the Second Temple period, 2nd century BCE to the 1st century CE. They believed in angels as supernatural beings who acted as agents of the god or Israel. Surviving documents have revealed that the Essenes possessed extensive knowledge in angeology. Their practices included prayer, rituals, devotions, and a strong collaboration with angels. The Essenes were deeply connected to the spiritual realm and maintained a vigilant expectation for the coming of the Messiah. Their texts, such as the Essene Gospel of Peace, shed light on the beliefs and practices of angels. Jewish mysticism, the Kabbalah, a mystical tradition within Judaism, delves into that much deeper and deeper aspects of reality, including angels. The Essenes, a mystic Jewish sect during that Second Temple period, had practices related to angels, and here are some specific aspects of their beliefs and practices. One of the things that they taught were a collaboration with them, or collaboration with angels. Surviving documents revealed that they possessed extensive knowledge in angeology. They believed that God interacts with humans through angels. The Essenes collaborated with angels through prayer, rituals, devotion, and sacred writings that contained the names of angels. I thought that was really interesting. The Essenes ritually immersed in water every morning, similar to the use of the mikveh for daily immersion. The mikveh, pronounced mikvah, also spelled M-I-K-V-A-H, is a Jewish ritual bath. The mikveh is used for ritual immersion to achieve ritual purity. It serves as a means of spiritual cleansing. Sounds a lot like our baptismal sort of experiences, and renewal. After prayer, they ate together as a community. They devoted themselves to charity, benevolence, and preserving secrets. Anger expression was forbidden among them. I do know that there are some other practicing religions. I know the Buddhists kind of do similar things with the cleansing and then the communal eating. Of course, they divide their communal eating. They have the women in one place and the men in another, but maybe not as inclusive as the Essenes. But this seems to be quite a practice. And I think that even Christianity, I remember when I was attending church as a young girl, I used to have, because I went to a lot of different churches. We moved so much that I was always in a different state every year in a different church, the closest church I could find. So I remember that it was a big part of that too. We would go to the public sermons, Sunday school, and then after we would congregate. Everybody would go out to a meal. We'd go eat as a congregation, or to someone's house, and have a wonderful dinner. Anyway, go ahead.
The ritual immersion reminds me of, I typically will take salt baths or showers using the salt to release discordant energies that I've picked up throughout the day. And it's like I didn't know that I really did rituals or ceremony, but I guess I do.
Yes. We have talked about that before, haven't we? sometimes I think we don't realize some of the practices that we pick up too that sort of help us feel better, in our lives and bring a lighter energy, a lifted spirit to each of our days. I know what you're saying, like with staging or salting your home, or like you were saying, the practice of salt water baths. So out of body experiences was another thing that they talked a lot about and seemed to know a lot about. Some Essenes had out of body experiences. Now this I found very particularly interesting because it was very closely related to something that did happen to me, literally. Some Essenes had out of body experiences where they were taken on tours of heaven. During these experiences, they were shown the secrets of the final days, often guided by angels. When I first read this, while researching for this class, I realized the unbelievable similarity to an experience that my husband and myself had in 1994, including secrets of the final days. I have to tell you, I was really taken aback. I realized that this experience followed years of meditation and intense spiritual education, as well as my studies with a woman called Elizabeth Burroughs, who was very steeped in the teachings of communion with the angels and angeology. So just wanted to throw that in there because I can actually attest to that is something that isn't just hearsay. It can happen. In summary, the Essenes actively engaged with angels through their practices, or so all of their writings seem to emphasize. The purity, devotion, and collaboration with these celestial beings. We have Jewish mysticism, the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah is a mystical tradition within Judaism, and it delves into deeper aspects of reality, including angels. Here are some key points related to angels in Jewish mysticism. The Rabbi David Cooper describes angels as invisible metaphysical energy bundles, and they act like magnets, causing physical changes through forces invisible to the eye. In Jewish tradition, it acknowledges that angels do not have physical characteristics. The descriptions of angels with wings, arms, etc. are anthropomorphic, symbolizing their spiritual abilities and tasks. And my experience with that, I have to agree. Kabbalistic texts explore, so we're going to go into the Kabbalah now. So Kabbalistic texts explore various angelic hierarchies and their roles. Angels serve as intermediaries between the divine and human realms. Mystical experiences. The Torah contains many stories of mystical experiences involving angels, from visitations to prophetic dreams and visions. The encounters, just a minute. These encounters reveal the interconnectedness of the material and spiritual worlds. I think it's really interesting that Christianity, our Bible, seems to contain the least amount of discussion on angels than most other traditions do. So I just wanted to make a little note of that. Hierarchy of angels. So different religious traditions propose a hierarchy of angels. Higher ranking angels possess greater power and authority than lower ones do. These ranks may differ in appearance, such as the number of wings or faces. Purpose and role. Angels serve as messengers, protectors, and agents of God's will. They assist humanity in various ways, including guiding, guarding, and delivering messages. Angels also participate in worship and praise. I find that really interesting too. Connecting with angels involves cultivating openness and receptivity. Here are some practical steps that many of us can take to do so. So pay attention to the signs. Angels often communicate through signs. And Betty and myself have talked about synchronicities and symbolism in the world before. I think it was in our elemental kingdom conversations and some of the others that we've had. Be aware, of synchronicities, receptive numbers, and feathers, or other unusual occurrences like numbers that repeat themselves as well. Many of you I know have seen those, like 1111, 88, 66, whatever the numbers are, when they're repeating in sequences. That's a way that they can talk to you as well. Trust your intuition when you notice these signs. Use your intuition. Your intuition is a powerful tool for connecting with angels. Another way is to quiet your mind. Listen to your inner guidance and follow your instincts. In the days that I was having the most communication or experiences with them in the world, and I would say, as far as the world, the environment, nature, people, books falling off of shelves, people communicating to me messages that they didn't even know that they were saying, synchronicities, interesting things that felt like coincidences, but they weren't coincidences. All of this stuff came to me in a much more profound way in the years that I was deeply meditating, spending a lot of time in that inner sanctum space where they can talk to you through their telepathic means of communicating, and you can feel them and hear them better. It's difficult in our day-to-day lives as we tootle through the functions of our day to quiet ourselves enough to pay attention to signs or symbols that may come up if our mind isn't set in that direction, if we're not looking for it, if we're not seeing it, if we're not, if we haven't established or set ourselves in that space before we go out into the world, it's much more difficult to bring those things into focus or to notice them as you're going about your life. Our lives get so busy, and it seems like our focus starts there instead of. So I found a lot of times that if we start our focus on that inner space, on that inner light, on invoking it, before we ever step out our front door, we have a good leg up on the whole situation. Then you can watch, the breadcrumbs drop. You and I were talking about that before this conversation today, how they lay out a lot of these signs for us, right? These symbols. Yeah. The other thing is to keep a journal. That's another thing that comes up a lot. Writing down your experiences and feelings can deepen your connection with angels. And you'll find that they talk to you and whisper to you all the time. You get stuff in your mind or you hear things and they're so profound. And we just go, oh, that was really profound. And then there away it goes. And if you don't write them down, that was a little clue. It was like one of those breadcrumbs that just dropped to you, that you've been asking for in the back of your mind saying, oh, please just send me a sign or tell me this or help me to hear you or, point me in the right direction or, just give me a clue. And they do all the time, but we just, when we get them, it could be in the least, what do I want to call it, convenient time. So we just sort of push it off and we don't go back to that, until later. If you write them down, even if you forget about them or whatever, you may find them, it'll just pop up to you again through guidance. They make sure that you see them again, that they put them right in front of your face again so that you can remember at the time that you most need it. It's amazing, really miraculous and astounding how these things happen once you start developing a communion with them, because they're always here to help you. One of the things I do want to say here before I forget, though, is that like anything in the light, angels cannot interfere in your life. We may go ahead and talk about that later in this conversation, but so it's really important that if you want them to be active and participatory in your life, that you invite them in. You ask them to come in. You direct them in the ways that you want them to help you. And then they will. They're just waiting for you to give them the go sign. So that's really important for you to know. Record any angelic encounters or dreams or insights that you receive, because there's a lot of symbolism and a lot of things in those experiences that give you clues and keys to what's going on in your life right now or what they most want to say to you. Meditate, meditate, meditate. I know people throw daggers at me when I say meditate. It's like, again, such an overused word, but I prefer to use the word communion, as all of you know, because that's truly what it is. So regular meditation or communion helps you to attune to a higher frequency, and it connects with angelic energies. It also connects with higher energies than that. So it's important for you to do so as often as you can possibly find the time to do that. Focus on love, light, and gratitude during your meditational practices, making sure that your focus is always on positive things, giving gratitude and thanks prior to asking for things is always a good practice too. It puts them in a more receptive light to be able to come in happily to serve you in all ways. And it also sets a sacred space around you that is already acceptant and light and lifted, a higher vibration, so that when you do ask for something, it comes into that space, right? It's already met with a space that is already full of light and positivity and gratitude.
Well, it seems that the focus here is just eliminating the noise, what I call noise of our, what I call normal lives. All the influences that we have is that we're constantly engaged in, thinking about. Yeah. And so when I can quiet my mind and go into that space, it just feels so good because it's just so peaceful.
Yes. Yes. That's perfectly said. Yep. So it's always good to, as always, it's always good to keep ourselves as positive and as light as we possibly can in all things. But these are some of the ways to begin to have a relationship, a communion with them. Bring them more fully and strongly into your life. So the next one would be to use crystals. Certain crystals, such as clear quartz, amethyst, and angelite, I think that's how you say that, are associated with angelic vibrations. So place them near you or hold them during the meditation. I often hold crystals in my left hand because that's your receiving hand. It will come through those energies unless you want to transmit, and you put them in your right hand if you're sending energies out. But if I'm listening, wanting to receive, they act like an amplifier, sort of, to the experience. I will hold them sometimes in my left hand. I've also heard that holding a glass of water, and I will do that. I didn't know why I was doing that for years, but I did read about that many years later, about how water, because water's always a conduit between the world, holding water or setting your feet in water sometimes can really, really benefit your meditations or your communications. Listening to music. Oh, yes. Music, angelic music or soothing instrumental tunes can create a serene atmosphere. So Allow the melodies to uplift your spirit and invite the angelic presence. I used to do that every single morning. I would start my meditations with music until I was so uplifted, it was like I was already in the heavens. And then I would go into my deep states, my deeper states of meditation. Spend time in nature. Nature is a good conduit for angelic energy. To take walks or sit by a tree, gaze at the sky to connect with the natural world and its angelic inhabitants. Use your third eye. The third eye chakra, if many of you don't know, we're going to have a class on that too, on chakras. But for now, it's located between the eyebrows, and it is associated with intuition and spiritual insight. So visualize it opening and imagine angelic light pouring in. That just feels beautiful when you say it. Remember that your intention and sincerity play a significant role in establishing communion with angels. Trust that they are always nearby, because they are, believe me, ready to guide and support you on your spiritual journey. What are the types of angels? Angels are fascinating celestial beings with distinct roles and characteristics. They're as diverse as there are teachings and belief systems and religious philosophies. According to various religious traditions and historical texts, there are 9 primary types or choirs of angels. So we're going to explore them here in a minute, but I want to ask Betty if she has anything she'd like to add to any of this at this time.
As we've been exploring this topic, I've come to the understanding that I didn't really think about before of how much I have, how many pictures I have of angels in my artwork in my healing space, for example. And I know I have lots of books on my shelves, and just the influences that are in my life, it's like they are kind of normal for me, whereas I didn't even think about how that has been an influence and how much I have surrounded myself with the topic.
Yeah, I think that where we get thrown a bit is that the tendency for most of us is to go back to that old stereotype, of angels, and we think about it in the context, I think, of scripture and of a religious tradition. But I love that you did that. So there's this. She showed me a fuller picture of her room. There's always this predisposed, I think, belief around them and what they look like and what they do. And it's a very simplistic and very limited view of them. And I'm just going to speak through my own experience. It doesn't make it right or wrong or anything. And again, if any of you, this doesn't resonate with you, please feel free to just set it over there on the side. I won't be offended at all, but I can share with you my knowledge of them as being just pure energy and light. And you'll see some of those descriptions in here in a bit. But there are so many different kinds. And we limit, I think, the whole context or the idea of angels to, a very contrite sort of expression, and they're really not that at all. So this is, I think, very valuable and important to discuss all of this so that people can begin to let themselves release a bit from the old contexts or ways that we've held ourselves to that impression of them within our old minds, I call them, and let it evolve, unwind, expand into a glorious new way of looking at energies, of service type creator energies to us. Pardon me, because that's exactly what they are. So we're going to get into now some of the hierarchy. And instead of calling it hierarchy or levels, they're going to call it spheres. So they talk about this first sphere of angels. And in the first sphere, which we're going to go from higher to lower in this case, starts at the highest levels. And the first one would be seraphim. And the word seraphim means the fiery ones. All right, seraphim are the closest to God, the closest angelic sort of creations to God, encircling his throne, or its throne. I'll go out of gender here for those of you who may be sensitive. The Catholic faith traditionally recognizes 9 orders of angels. And here's a quote from Saint Robert Bellarmine, I think. Pardon me if I said that incorrectly. But although all the angels are doubtless most happy, the wonderfully resplendent with the glory of every divine gift, yet those are called seraphim, who burn with the flames of love for others. They have 6 wings, 4 to cover themselves in humility before God, and 2 for flying. So 4 to cover themselves and 2 for flying. Their continuous worship cry is holy, holy, holy. In religious art, they are often depicted as radiant beings emitting intense fiery light. Okay, next would be the cherubim. The cherubim are the keepers of celestial records and hold divine knowledge. They guard sacred spaces and perform significant tasks, such as expelling humanity from the Garden of Eden. Cherubims, they are chimeric entities with 4 faces, one of a man, one of an ox, one of an eagle, and one of a lion, or a lion-esque body. Oxen hooves as feet, and 4 to 6 wings. They guard the God's throne and the tree of life. Ancient art portrays them as sphinx-like winged creatures with human faces quite different from the popular image of chubby little baby angels with wings. I was going to say that earlier. The cherubim mostly all of us have this image, and this is where I say you're going to lose. We're hoping you will let go of some of your preconceived images of these and really allow yourself to sit with some of these new descriptions and energies of these beings, because as you progress through your spiritual enlightenment and the progress toward your ascension, the relationship and the communion that you have with these different levels of beings, or at least your knowledge of them, will grant you the ability or help to expedite your ability to have connection to them, to actually go to them specifically and ask them to come into your life and help you with specific things. And knowing what they do helps you to understand who to call on, you know, what kind of energies you want to draw to you to ask for favor or help or just comfort or love, or even sending that to others that you love, you know, or helping to heal. Let me see where we left off, cherubim. So now we're going to move to thrones, the throne angels. The thrones appear as great glowing wheels, okay, and you may have read about this in Ezekiel. Great glowing wheels covered with many eyes. They serve as God's chariot and execute his judgments. Thrones, Lovecraftian eldritch beings, eldritch beings, that look like a fiery wheel with numerous eyes and wings. Their purpose is to carry out God's decrees and maintain cosmic order. So these are quite astounding. In Ezekiel, you'll find descriptions of this fiery wheel with eyes. It's really quite fascinating. So there are beings in our known history, as well as people in modern day, who have had very similar experiences and descriptions, or can give you them, that were documented thousands and thousands of years ago. And that I find really just amazing. So now we come into the second sphere of angels. It's called the dominions. We're going to lead with them. The dominions exist in a state of transition between the celestial and human worlds. So they act as heavenly governors, balancing matter and spirit. Think of them as middle management, receiving orders from higher ranking angels and delegating duties to lower order angels. The dominions, and that's an easy way for you to remember because dominating, dominions, they oversee, right, management. The classic type of angels represented in pop culture, with human shape and two feathered wings, usually carrying luminous weapons with them. We can think of maybe Michael, looks a little bit like that. Their role includes ensuring that the cosmos remains in harmony. Very important. Virtues. The virtue angels perform miracles and inspire righteousness. They are conduits for divine power, bringing about positive change into the world. Their influence encourages moral and spiritual growth. The virtues are similar to the previous types aesthetically, but with different roles. Powers, the power angels, or the angels of powers, protect against threats and maintain balance. They safeguard the cosmic order and prevent chaos. These angels work behind the scenes to ensure stability and harmony. Powers, the army of heaven, each of them is represented as armored humanoids with either chains or shields and spear as weapons. Do we have any comments at this point at all?
It's
you
just,
doing okay?
I am. And it's just really fascinating to me to see the different levels or spheres. Just because I've never thought of it, I think of angels as there's archangels and then there's angels, and they're all angels. But to see it defined this way is, in my mind enjoys this.
And I wish that hopefully in the future we can go into more context with this and have some imagery for you guys too. But you can always go and do the Google, like us old people say, Google these beautiful different spheres of beings, of angelic beings. And the spheres too, which I find always really fascinating, is it's almost like moving them into dimensional spaces, because when they talk about spheres, there's certain ones that are like collected within spheres or bodies of the cosmos that function, within that sphere, and then you have others that function within a different light sphere. So we're also working with these kind of energetic spaces where they all sort of participate in. This is also another nuance of this subject that people don't talk a lot about. So this third sphere of angels, now we're getting into the ones that are a little bit more familiar to most of us, are the principalities. So we'll begin with them. The principalities in the third sphere guide and protect nations, regions, and groups. So now we're getting kind of into the third sphere, which you could identify maybe with third dimension, right? Experience. And you have them protecting nations, regions, and groups. They oversee collective destinies, and influence historical events. So their role is to maintain order and promote the well-being of communities. Principalities are kind of humanoid angels with scepters and crowns, and symbols of their role as guides and muses for humanity. Now, a fascinating thing is, as I was reading this description of them and reviewing for this conversation, it came to me the image of like the gods, the Greek gods, okay? Zeus and all of these that had the crowns and the scepters or wielded thunderbolts or, whatever. So I'm just going to leave that there because that could be part of what we were experiencing there. Archangels. Okay, so now we've got the archangels, which most of you have all heard of. They're probably the most infamous in our history, our human history. And they are messengers who deliver important messages from God. They also carry out divine missions. Some well-known archangels include Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel. And those are very interactive in our history and scripture and most of our world religions. Guardian angels, next. Most of us have all heard of them. And guardian angels are assigned to individuals. They offer guidance, protection, and support throughout our lives. These angels respect our free will and assist us without interfering. These angels, the lowest class, and the ones closest to mankind. The famous guardian angels are a subtype. The famous guardian angels are a subtype. That's part of this group. Remember that angels are unique beings, and their roles extend beyond these categories. Whether you seek their guidance or simply appreciate their existence, angels can play a significant role in various spiritual beliefs and traditions. There are also hierarchies for those fallen angels. We won't talk a lot about them, but there is a little bit that I thought we should include in here so that we've been complete in the context of presenting angelic orders to you. What role do these have in the story of humanity? So fallen angels, also known as demons, or they have various names, play a significant role in various religious and esoteric traditions. Here are some perspectives. In Christianity, fallen angels were originally created as good angels, but rebelled against God. The most famous among them is Lucifer or Satan, who led the rebellion. And again, remember, this is from Christianity's account of them. Their role includes tempting humans, spreading evil, and opposing God's purposes. The concept of the fallen originates from the story of Lucifer's rebellion in heaven in Isaiah, the book of Isaiah 14. Jewish texts mention fallen angels as well, such as the Watchers mentioned in the book of Enoch. These angels descended to earth, intermarried with humans, and taught forbidden knowledge. Their actions led to the corruption of humanity before the flood. In Islamic tradition, fallen angels are called jinn. That's a capital J-I-N-N. Created from smokeless fire. Iblis, similar to Satan, refused to bow to Adam and was cast out of paradise. Jinn can be good or evil, and they influence human affairs. So they're a lot like the cartoonish or the mythological genies, which you can make a wish on, right? They can either be good, it's kind of like trick or treat. They can either be good or they can be bad, depending on how they're feeling probably in that moment, or how tricky they can be. So that's how that story goes. They're really quite interesting, the beliefs around that tradition. The esoteric views, okay, so in esoteric tradition, see fallen angels as beings who chose to experience duality and separation from God. So they represent the struggle between light and dark, or light and darkness, within each soul. Working with our shadow or darkness can lead to self-awareness and transformation. Remember, interpretations vary of all of these levels, and these perspectives offer different insights into the cosmic struggle between good and evil. Angelic hierarchies are fascinating systems that classify angels based on their proximity to the divine and their roles in the cosmos. So before I go into exploring some of the other key aspects, is there anything that you wanted to say about that last little bit that we read there?
One thing about the guardian angels, I've heard the concept that each person has a birth angel that stays with them throughout their physical life. And that is it's a protection, but there's other angels that show up in dire circumstances, for example. So it's just a concept that was kind of new to me about a birth angel.
Yeah, that is really interesting. When I first awakened in my conversations and meditations, I received what they called an overlighting guardian. So, and that was like an oversoul guardian that watched over all your lifetimes and was with you in all of them. So there's, like I said, this is a basic breakdown of what religions teach as the traditional, but within that, I think you're going to find limitless subgroups of different type servants, angelic messengers, beings, participating creations that assist in all kinds of different ways. These are just, because we're still humans evolving from what we call lower density type spheres, even if it's third and fourth and fifth, it's still lower densities than a lot of the higher spheric, beings exist in. And there's probably many beyond that as well. I mean, if we really got into that. But for now, this gives us really all probably we need to be concerned about, but like you said, I think that there are definitely offshoots into these as we go take deeper dives, right, into a lot of what the angelic's capacity is with humanity. And maybe even what I want to call exclusive type souls. There may be some that require more or more collaboration than other souls do, depending on their experience. What was I saying? So, and the hierarchies are fascinating, and their roles are, just really, really interesting. We're going to explore some of the key aspects of those roles, but in Jewish angeology, we've taken into account several of the others. There are 10 ranks of angels, and all are very similar to those that we've already covered. And because of that, I'm not going to go into all of their levels, but I would like to focus on one that I found really, really interesting, that I think that relates to the situation that we've been in for this time on our earth plane. As we've talked about, and many of you probably heard about this shift time that we're living in, and how humankind is evolving at such a rapid rate, I just thought this particular category of angel is very interesting. They bring up within the Jewish angeology that there's an order, a ninth order called the Ishim. And these are man-like beings. And so I wonder if they're like human angels, right? Genesis 18:2 says, and this is back in Genesis, okay, the first book, right, of the Bible, discusses these man-like human angels. Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried, from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. So showing subservience, showing that this being was worthy of honor and obeisance. And so this is what, a lot of the Jewish angeology tradition points to when they talk about some of these earth-like or human man-like angels. In Daniel 10:5, and this is very long context, so if you want to go look that up, I really highly recommend it, because Daniel is a very, very interesting book in the scriptures, and it has a lot of information in there. I don't claim to be a religious person, but I've had a lot of religious education. I am in traditional understanding now and teach from all of these points of view. But because somebody did write these things down, they could be used to give us pointers or guidance or direction. In Daniel 10:5, it says, "Then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold and upas," which is like a beautiful bronzy gold metal. "His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like in the color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude." This may come into play, this conversation of possibility of man-like angels, or angels that can take the form of human beings and be here for a time, interacting with us, or maybe be here for times, being able to come and go. As humanity continues to evolve and lift themselves up, we start to enter into higher vibrations and frequencies that resonate more and are more easily accessed by those of the higher vibrational angelics. So there may have been a time way, way, way back in history, possibility, that where we were actually in that state, more closely related or closer to those higher frequencies of experience. And this was a very common thing for angels to come and go in form. I am just suggesting, if you keep your hearts and your minds open, that we may be heading a little bit in that direction again, and possibly be able to interact and interface with these beautiful beings more than we have in the past. So Isham, that was a new one on me, and I'm probably going to go look at that a lot more. Angels and some of their roles with us. So let's explore for a minute the connection between angels' human ascension and our DNA. And this is what we were just talking about, the ascension, how humanity is evolving and raising its frequency and its vibration on a very, very fast track at the moment, fast pace. The Feast of the Ascension celebrates Jesus' return to heaven after his resurrection. It's a moment of glory and exaltation. The fathers of the church interpret parables like the lost sheep and the lost coin as representing angels rejoicing over humanity's redemption. So all of these religions, belief systems, if you want to call them, there are mentions of ascension. There are mentions of ascension and angels. They're sort of categorized, are lumped into the same conversations very often. Christ, like the Good Shepherd, seeks out his lost sheep for humanity and shares its joy with the angels. The ascension also manifests the exaltation of human nature. While angelic nature remains superior, in the order of creation, Christ's incarnation, resurrection, and ascension elevate our humanity. Saint Thomas Aquinas taught that every human has a guardian angel from conception, just like you were talking about, right? The birth angels. And these angels protect us from evil and harm. Angels and saints both intercede for us, but angels have a unique role. They share the same power as saints, but operate differently. So, DNA and spiritual transformation. While not explicitly tied to our DNA, spiritual transformation affects our entire being, including our physical bodies. Now, I found that very interesting too, because, we could get into a very specific conversation about how a lot of people today still do believe that as our DNA opens or that our DNA gets changed, it has something to do with our spiritual transformation. This is suggesting that that might not be true. As we grow spiritually, our DNA does not change, but our consciousness, energy, and alignment with divine principles evolve. So our DNA may remain just exactly as it's always been created. As they've said, a lot of it had become dormant, so we were only functioning or awake to certain strands of DNA. Now we've got more DNA firing and opening up, which means that maybe our DNA doesn't change at all. It's simply a matter of, as it does awaken or open, our consciousness, energy, and alignment with everything evolves. So angels guide us towards higher states of consciousness, helping us ascend spiritually. Remember, the mystery of angels and their involvement in our journey is profound. I see you nodding your head. Is there something you'd like to say about that, the DNA?
Well, I'm looking forward to a future conversation so I can understand better about DNA. But it seems like the light, as you were talking, I was picturing the strands like lighting up that had been asleep.
Yeah. It's just an interesting way of looking at it, because I think that some people may misconstrue, but not all. I'm not saying everybody does, because there may be people who understand that just very well. And it does make perfect sense that, it's always been there. We're just lighting up, continuing to light up. And as it does, we function on more cylinders than we did before, right?
Yes.
So, how do we know if an angelic presence is around us? So, angels can manifest in a lot of different various ways. And while each person's experience is unique, here are some common signs that angels might be near us. One is feathers, and I know that everybody is probably familiar with that, and everyone gets that from time to time. Spotting a feather on the ground, especially a white feather, is often considered a clear sign from angels. Feathers of other colors, such as black, gray, or brown, can also hold significance. Remember that part about listening to your intuition about these things, because your symbolism, how signs show up for you, are specific to you, just like dreams are. When we have dreams, it's very difficult for a person to interpret your dreams, because every single being has a different, book on symbolism, or a language that's specific to only them, that signs mean something or symbols mean something specific to them, and maybe not to anyone else or any other people. So remember that when you ask for something, pay attention. If you're having trouble, if you're confused, if you're agonizing or stressed or anxious over something, pay attention, because the universe is sending you signs. They usually send you those kind of things, or these kind of things. The angels get involved when you can't how do I say this? When we're not listening. We're asking, but we're not listening. So they will send you a physical sign, right? That's another way that they can try and reach you. They'll keep dropping white feathers in front of you. They'll keep helping you find stones. They'll keep, letting you see hawks, for example, or hummingbirds coming to you, or dragonflies, or, I've had all of these things because, believe me, I was quite oblivious. All of my awakening first started. It took me a long time before I started putting everything together and understanding. So the outer manifested world will start sending you these pictures, these signs, and angels are so good at placing them right in front of you over and over and over again, hoping that you will finally get it, hear them. Coins, for example. Okay, there's another one. Finding coins in unusual places can be an angelic sign. Pay attention if the date on the coin holds personal significance for you. Coins symbolize luck, wealth, abundance, and opportunity. For instance, if you find a penny and a nickel, it might be time to pay more attention to your sixth sense, or sixth sense, CENTS. Angel numbers. Okay, here we talked about this a little earlier today. Seeing certain numbers or number patterns repeated is a widely recognized angelic sign. These mysterious numbers are known as angel numbers. Each angel number has its own significance. For example, 111 signifies new beginnings. 444, now these are more universal, so you don't really have to go into your own interpretation. They've kind of given them to us. 444 represents protection, and 777 indicates spiritual alignment. And I know you can find these on the internet. Just go Google them because they're out there. I found them myself. And they might give you some help, because I know a lot of us get them like 333 and 222 and, And at certain times of your life, those numbers will just kind of repeat for you. Sudden feelings of peace or calm. Angels can bring unexplained feelings of peace, light, or calm. You might experience warmth or comforting sensations enveloping you. These feelings indicate angelic presences and their desire to soothe and guide you. Angels can raise your awareness and expand your consciousness. You might feel more connected to the spiritual realm when you're communicating with them. This suggests that angels are communicating with you and opening your spiritual senses. Faint, a lot of you have written me, and I've had sessions with you before that have talked about faint or sweet fragrances. Sometimes you may notice a delicate fragrance that cannot be traced to any physical source. This subtle scent could be an angelic presence. It signifies their gentle presence and love surrounding you. Remember that angelic signs can be both subtle and profound. Trust your intuition and pay attention to these clues. These are messages from your celestial helpers. I've had a lot of people who have talked to me, Betty, in the past, that have told me they've had visitations from a family member or whatever, that it was accompanied by either their favorite flower or of their favorite perfume, or that's how they knew it was them. So that's something I don't believe I've ever experienced that. Not myself, but I've had a lot of people tell me that they have. So based on ancient Essene scrolls that were discovered in the last century, there's a handbook for peace called Angels of the Essenes. And this handbook provides 7 angelic meditations that practitioners can use to create peace in their lives. The reason I'm bringing this up is because a lot of times people ask me, well, is there any reading material or books out there? And there is really, really a lot of information and a lot of people out there who do talk about angels. I find because I'm really one of those esoteric manuscript people. I like to go into the real hardcore stuff. Elizabeth Burroughs really has a lot, in fact, a lot of videos on YouTube. She has some wonderful books that are written, and she's an old timer. I'm not even really certain if she's still with us in this world, but I haven't looked in some time. But she has a lot of really great information out there. And of course, there are lots and lots of others that you can look for out there to get more information on angels. I can vouch for Elizabeth Burroughs myself because I did practice and study with her, all of her practices and meditations for, I'd say, about going close to 10 years. And that is how I think I've had a lot of these experiences in my life, because unbeknownst to me, I just wanted to learn about it and do it, but I didn't know it was going to have such a profound effect in my life. I would actually start having these experiences. So I wanted to share that with you, and to tell you a little bit about her, so you don't feel like she's a crazy person, because she's certainly not. She's very academic and incredibly intelligent. She's a renowned author and authority on the scriptures and hidden knowledge. Spoke of the Essenes and the communion with the angels, she emphasized that this teaching provides a path for every human to raise their divine nature beyond the limitations of mortality, which again is interesting, and we will have future conversations on this. By understanding and utilizing the powerful forces of heaven and earth, individuals can transform their lives. So in closing, is there something you'd like to add here, Betty, before we do close out for today? Because there's a lot of information today.
It is a lot of information, but I wanted to just remind that one of the things that we talked about was that the angels are here to remind us of who we are and how we are connected to them and how they express. And the next step then is expressing or connecting through them to Creator. And I remember that one of the things that we talked about is how they help us with that until we are able to raise our vibrations. And at that point, then perhaps we won't need their support, like we obviously are getting by with a lot of support right now from the angelic kingdom.
Yeah, that's a very good point that you brought up. Thank you for doing that too. Yes, and I think there's been a nuance underneath and an undertone in our entire conversation today and teaching of the angels that's sort of alluding to that possibility or that potential for humankind as we do step up and unify and, how do I want to say this, embrace their guidance and their lead on revealing to us who we are. Their mere presence and their love and their origin, I would say, the channeling of the light that is in them and the love that's in them connects us so much more completely to our source, and constantly is a reminder, the deeper and deeper we come into communion with them, the more and more clearly we see our own soul, our own self, and our relationship to that source, that light, that love as well. So in a way, there are brothers and sisters in light that constantly mirror and communicate to us, remind us, because I don't think they're teaching us that. I think they're reminding us who we already are. And we've just forgotten. And this embrace, if we can do it, If we find the passion in us, if we're lit up from inside, if we really, really want to know, they're kind of like our bridge, right? Our stepping stone to that place. And they're certainly embracing. They're certainly loving, accommodating, always there, always in service and helpful, healing. I mean, there isn't anything you can't call on them to do. They do have, like we've talked about, some limitations because they can't interfere in our journey, in our process, in our soul's unfoldment. But they can guide, they can tip, they can save us from disaster. I mean, if there's something happening and it's not in our timing, they definitely can swoop in and take care of that situation. And I know it's happened in my life many times, and I'm sure if people really thought about it, it's probably happened in theirs too. So in that sense of the word, they can help, but I think it is in that tipping moment of life and death that they can actually, have permission to sort of interfere. But for the most part, I just really, it kind of makes me wonder sometimes, and this is a big leap, I know, but for those of us who do interact with them, not so big, I do wonder sometimes if we aren't them, and that is our relationship.
Because in all of the conversations we have, it seems like what I used to think was out there is not. It's here. It's here beside me. It's here within me. And if you don't mind, I wanted to just mention an influential book I read a few years ago was The Gentle Way by Tom Moore. And the concept is that the angels are there waiting to assist, but they can't do it without the invitation. And so he has testimonials of little things, finding parking places, find the parking place close to the store, because his concept is that it doesn't matter how small you think you're asking, it's the practice of communicating and connecting.
Yep.
And so I think he's got 3 books out now, and he's got a newsletter, and the testimonials that I read are just so inspiring. It's like, oh my goodness, and it's the angels have come through because people have invited. It's requesting the most benevolent outcome.
Absolutely.
And then another thing I may have mentioned to you before is my sister Annette gives out little angel charms. She carries them with her wherever she goes. And she might, at a server at a restaurant, for example, just say, could I give this to you? She's just inspired to share those. And the results are people are just amazed. And they are so grateful for this symbol. And so I think that I'm realizing as we're having this conversation how the angel energy is so prevalent in my life. And I notice how it's prevalent in other people's lives, although they might not notice it themselves, because it's like a blessing. It's a blessing to have that connection, to have that knowing that I'm not in this alone. None of us are in this alone. We all have support from other human beings, but these unseen beings, or at least in my world, I don't see them, but I have a knowing, and it just feels good.
It does. It does. And I know that most, you and I have talked about this before about, kind of why do we need that when we can just go to God, right, to the source. We have that. That's comforting. It's there. I don't know how other people feel. Maybe it's just because that's a big leap for some. Maybe because all of us need to feel, to be able to feel love and feel wrapped in something and need to have interaction, relationship. And you can have it with, I mean, they are the representative of that. It is like, I don't think there's any separation there at all. You know, we may think in our minds it's something that's different or separated, but it isn't. It's just another aspect of the creator or the source light or the all in all or the all that is or love, if you want to put it that way. Whatever your sense of what, you know, made life is life itself is, and the eternal is, they're just other particles of that same light. And it's there for us to appreciate, to enjoy, to, like you said, take into this rapturous state, you know, to help uplift us in joy, because they always experience total joy, which is really something that all of us could use at this moment. And maybe all moments, I don't know, humanity. I had a master who used to say to me that the earth is called the little planet of sorrows. And that's what he called it. And what he said, that those in his realm, the seventh level, saw the planet, they called the planet Earth a little planet of sorrows. And I thought, wow, that's really another perspective on this whole thing. That's a way to look at all of this. But I think it's because of the ups and the downs, because of that interplay between light and darkness, between love and, you know, judgment. So we have the dichotomy here on this earth, and the angels are just kind of, I want to say, like on our team. It's kind of those that you can reach for, that light that you can count on, that, you know, hug at night if you're feeling, you know, alone or lost or, you know, confused. It's been a wondrous thing in my life. I hope it is a wondrous thing in everyone's life, and that you come to know them a little bit better through this conversation that we've had today, and really welcome them in. I mean, just talk to them. I can promise you that, you know, there's nowhere that they aren't, that they are everywhere, and they're interactive here on this earth plane at all times, most of the time behind the scenes and not necessarily in your life if you're not paying attention to them. They're on about their business all over this earth and many other planets and systems and realms, and until you tap them and start talking to them and call them in. And when you do, they know, they hear you, and they're on it, you know, and they will move heaven and earth literally. It may take them some time because they have to move heaven and earth to get you what you need, right? They're not just, they have to move circumstances and right people. And so when you invite them into your life, be super, super clear, absolutely clear about what it is you want, vision, statement, clarity to them, and they will get it. You will get it, I promise. And if you get confused or led astray or distracted at any point during that process, then they switch gears. It's like they've got to change now everything to try to help you now with where you're going, you know, and what you're doing. So think about the complexity of these beings as they try to do their work with us. In other words, you know, how easy are we on them? You know, do we help them, or do we make things really difficult for them? So I would suggest that to you, because after seeing them and seeing how they function and operate, knowing how all of these different realms go about their business, because they have a specific function as designed by the Creator. And that's what they do. And for us to have a place in all of that, we have to kind of mature, grow up, understand what we're asking of them. You know what I'm saying? And then be really certain, because they can help us with all of those things. And like you said, even the little things, but those are ways that we start to build the relationship with them, become comfortable, trust them. No, it becomes rote, right? You just ask them, think it, and it becomes a part of you. Again, I'm going to just interject here. I really do think it's because they're teaching us, they're guiding us how to embrace our own power, how to see and understand that miraculous connection to that manifesting source or that light source or the all that is within our own being. The more and more and more that we come to understand how things work, the more we embrace it, the more it is in us, and it's just rote. And the more rote it is, the more we understand that it's within us to do this, to have this, to access it, at all times. And it's like any good teacher, right? You want to teach your kids, or people, or share with people so that they can do this for themselves, right? So that they can do this and become and go off and do amazing and wonderful things. You don't want to hold them so tight and get them dependent on you so that you have to do this forever for them. No, that's not the point. So I've chatted on enough. But so while angeology is fascinating, it's essential to approach it with humility and recognize that our knowledge is limited. God's revelation focuses on informing us about itself, rather than providing exhaustive details about angels. In summary, angeology enriches our understanding of God's creation and her interaction with both the visible and invisible realms. And I thank you, and I'm sure Betty thanks you all for being here. And I hope that you've enjoyed this conversation as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Robin, for bringing it to us. This has been, it's really a wonderful topic. It's a wonderful energy, and the activation of the energy, just speaking it and being within it, has been huge. It's all about love.
So thank you again, everybody. And if you're interested in hearing any more, accessing any more of our recordings, you can go to www.embracingsource.com, and that is www.embracingsource.com, and that's my website. You can also go to YouTube. The recordings here will take you there anyway, and look for any other recordings we may have from Embracing Source or Conversations with Spirit. And again, thank you so much. I hope that you all have a very blessed week, and thank you for coming.